Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leisrealtalk. How does my audio sound? I actually started without testing the microphone. Hold on, let me see. Can you guys hear me all right? Let me change this.
Maybe. Is this better? Yeah, this should be better, right? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for joining me. All right. Since the flood in Hebei started, I have been observing, and one of the things that came to my mind is as I watched how the Chinese government has become dysfunctional and not helping the people in the flood, I couldn't help myself but taking note about the disconnect between the government and then the people. Uh, Even though we cannot draw a direct parallel between what has happened in Hebei to a possible war in the Taiwan Strait, but I thought that it's kind of interesting to see how the Chinese government functions or how it has functioned. And sort of from there, it can give us some hint to what the situation may be like in the future in the event of a war, how the Chinese government would um, would deal with Chinese society. Although there aren't any direct correlations between what's happening now versus what a war would be like in the future, but I think there are a lot of similarities, and those observations I did not write it in the description of this live stream, but as I was preparing more and more, as I was getting into the preparation of this live stream, I thought more and more about that topic. So as we go along today's topics, 5 topics, I will address that. Okay, so that's one of I think, the significance of this conversation. Otherwise, if we're just talking about the flooding and how the Chinese government has dealt with it, I think it's still lacking a future reference or future relevancy. So keep that thought in mind as we go along. So first, we'll talk about the typhoon and geopolitics and how Taiwan has benefited from this. Typhoon Doksuri ravaged through China from Fujian all the way to Heilongjiang, causing heavy rain, flooding, drowning people and animals, collapsing houses and buildings, destroying farmlands and infrastructures. While the flooding has yet to subside, Typhoon, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Kanan is approaching. Let me share a map of, let me see, I think this one. Here we go. So this is the map of Kanan, and it has been an anomaly. First, it's long lasting. It has been 11 days, or by now it's probably more than 11 days. It's probably 12, 13 days since the formation of the typhoon on July 28th. And that's long compared to a typical lifespan of about 6 to 7 days of a typhoon. And secondly, the path of the typhoon Kanan has been very odd. Take a look at the map. I think that the path has some geopolitical implication. I think it made some geopolitically inspired turns, shall we say, for lack of a better term. So this typhoon was originally in the waters that seems to direct, if you look at the yellow lines, that seem to direct right at Taiwan, right? Then it turned towards Japan. If you look at the orange line, as it was expected to land in Japan, it suddenly slowed down and made a 90-degree turn on August 7th, and avoiding Japan and heading straight to the Korean Peninsula. It made a zigzag turn. And then from there, it would extend further all the way into northeastern China. an area that hasn't fully recovered from Typhoon Doksuri yet. So during the whole time, the island Taiwan escaped the onslaught of this typhoon, Kanun, and has even miraculously benefited from this typhoon. Taiwan's Ministry of Economic Affairs, the Water Resource Department, said on the 7th that during the 4 days Typhoon Kanun was impacting Taiwan from the 1st to the 4th of August, it brought significant rainfall, 320 million tons of water, to Taiwan's reservoirs, and thus alleviating Taiwan's ongoing drought. As a result, Taiwan's reservoirs are mostly full or more than half full. So that's good news for Taiwan. And speaking of Taiwan, Taiwan's president Tsai Ing-wen was the first head of state who sent condolences to flood victims in China via social media on August 1st. And on August 5th, Ukrainian President Zelensky also expressed his condolences and support to the Chinese, and he wrote it in Chinese. Japan, US, and the European Union expressed their willingness to help to provide aid. But China's allies, the leaders from Russia, North Korea, Pakistan, and even the African nations that have received financial aids from China, did not say anything, or at least by the time, or as of last weekend, this weekend, we did not hear anything. What made the Chinese especially angry was that on August the 2nd, state media reported that, actually the report was on August the 3rd, but the event took place on August the 2nd. China's ambassador to Sudan hosted a ceremony to donate medical supplies to Sudan as part of the flood relief aid to Sudan, including 900 tons of food and 10 million renminbi. Chinese citizens angrily ask, why Sudan and not Hebei province? And where is Sudan in the Hebei flood? I think the biggest impact the typhoon and the floods made on geopolitics is the revelation that, one, the Chinese government is completely dysfunctional, facing a large-scale calamity. And two, Chinese citizens are getting organized on their own in the face of a paralyzed government. So this gives the Chinese people more power and gives the Chinese government less power. I think this development that we saw in the flood crisis management has provided us some foresight into how Chinese society will react in the event that a war in the Taiwan Strait breaks out. So from what we have seen, the world's largest government has been completely paralyzed and is incapable of fulfilling the most basic public service functions. As water started to recede in the hardest hit area in Hebei. Do I have a picture? Oh, I'll show you the picture later. That one is fun. And the miseries and trauma that people suffer have surfaced. I won't go into the details because it's just countless heart-wrenching stories to tell. I'll just tell you one thing that shows you the severity of the situation. Facing the impossible choice of dying from hunger and dying from contaminated food, many flood victims chose to eat the food they found in the dirty flood water. They know that they shouldn't be picking any food from the flood water because there are all kinds of things floating there, right? But they had no choice. And when they shared the food they found with others, those who got the contaminated food wanted to kneel down to thank them. So it's heartbreaking to hear that, but it shows you the severity of the situation and the lack of rescue efforts on the part of the government. And this is happening because the Chinese officials are only capable of following marching orders and has lost the ability to help their people. So let me give you an example. During the same week, there's an earthquake in Shandong. A teacher led a group of students out of a building, and they were stopped by a security guard who told them that no one can leave because he didn't receive any order from his superior to let people out. Now, this is unfathomable, right? It's unthinkable. But he isn't alone. His mindset is exactly the mindset of CCP officials or a lot of the people in China. Other than being politically correct and show loyalty, Chinese officials collectively have lost their independent thinking and sense of judgment and the ability to help people. I'll describe the four major differences between how China has dealt with or is dealing with the floods versus how people in other countries would handle it. And this difference or these differences, you can apply them to China's future wartime mechanism if we ever come to that point. So the first of all, no top leaders care about the people and would visit the disaster area. So to protest Xi Jinping's lack of interest in the disasters, Chinese posted pictures of former CCP leaders Hu Jintao and Jiang Zemin inspecting disaster areas online. They also posted pictures of North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. Here I do have a picture of him. And I have two pictures. Who had inspected, floods and typhoons. This one was on September 6, 2020. Kim inspected a coastal area hit by a typhoon, and he dispatched 12,000 party members from the capital city, Pyongyang, to participate in post-disaster reconstruction. He also dismissed the responsible party secretary of the province, according to North Korean press. And the Chinese lamented that. But the question is, well, Xi Jinping hasn't even done that yet, right? So the Chinese lamented that even the North Koreans are better off than they do in a disaster situation. Some say that they start to like Kim Jong-un because he did more for his country than somebody in Beijing did or has done. Xi Jinping and his top officials all went to Beidaihe for their summer gathering, retreat, and power struggles. Under pressure from social media, Xi Jinping did send his vice premier, Zhang Guoqing, to handle the situation. The guy went to Tianjin and Heilongjiang and didn't bother to go to the worst hit area in Hebei. And you wonder why. Okay, so that's the first one. They will not go visit people in need. And secondly, all local officials chose to lie down or lie flat, and they would disappear when things don't go well. Zhengzhou citizens made a video and created social media posts. Here we go. Titled, "Where are Zhengzhou government officials?" And the posts said, "Zhengzhou officials, where are you? Facing the unprecedented floods, rescue teams from out of town areas have come," or, private rescue teams from out of town have come. People's life is on the line. The loss is tremendous. But during the process, we don't hear from you and we don't see you. Where have you been? Are you all drowned? Please respond if you are not. So this is I'm actually reading from a voiceover from a video. And speaking of the local officials, it's rumored that the Zhengzhou party secretary, not Zhengzhou, the Zhuozhou, the city that's most hard hit by the flood, the city that was sacrificed for saving, what's the name of that city? I suddenly forgot. Xiong'an, sorry. So it's rumored that the party secretary of this city, Zhuozhou, his name is Cai Weihua. He volunteered to sacrifice his city. in order to shoulder the flood or to block the flood water for Xiong'an. Now, his proposal was surprisingly approved by someone at the very top in 2 hours. It was approved so fast that even Tsai's superior in the local Hebei province, the Baoding Municipal Party Committee, didn't know about it. So it looks like he bypassed his local superiors to get approval from the very top. So who is he? Well, he's said to be the nephew of Cai Qi, the guy who is running the CCP household for Xi Jinping, who I made a program about, and I called him the second most powerful person in China. And after that information is released, people try to verify if the two Cais are indeed related. They found that the junior Cai, which is the guy in this picture, was only a deputy county level official in 2020 and was promoted 3 times in 2 years. And his fast track promotions made people more suspicious of his connection to his uncle, the guy who's running the show for Xi Jinping. This shows that as long as you have the right political connections, you don't have to worry about not doing anything or doing anything wrong, right? You don't have to worry about anything as long as you have the right connection. Some people have called the inaction, the lack of action or the inaction by these municipal leaders, or the volunteered sacrifice, manslaughter. They think these officials committed manslaughter. All right, so that's the second. And third, for this type of large-scale disaster, you would expect the military being deployed to handle relief efforts, but no military personnel were deployed. Let me come back. And what we heard is that Xi Jinping sacked a few more generals at Beidaihe, which would certainly cause the officers, the low-ranking officers and in the PLA, feeling restless, if not resentful. So Xi Jinping is certainly aware of the loyalty problems within the PLA, and therefore is afraid to cause any more disturbances. So he avoided mobilizing or dispatching the PLA for flood recovery, because in any normal situations, that kind of scale of relief effort, you have to deploy military to do it. But people were very shocked to find out that there was just no PLA soldiers on site to do it. Well, the reason is because of the struggle Xi Jinping has with the PLA. But instead, the propaganda department staged photo shoots to fake the PLA's involvement. The CCP official paper in Hebei province. Let me see. What is this? Oh, here's more information on the. Oh, here it is. This one is hilarious. The CCP official paper in Hebei on the left, the Hebei Daily, reported a video showing a young soldier who was so tired from the rescue effort and fell asleep while holding his lunchbox. Okay, that's the recent post by the Hebei Daily on the left. The news was covered by a few other state media outlets, but then people discovered that it was an old footage from July 2020 when the People's Daily reported a flood in Wuxi, Jiangsu province. So somebody highlighted the date. It was 2020, July 20th, and it was the same video that was posted 3 years ago. So this is fake. And the CCTV reported on August 2nd that officers and soldiers of Army's 82nd Regiment spent 6 hours to build a 200 meters long dike to block invading water. And there were pictures and, to show how hard the soldiers worked. But on the same day, a villager posted a video that he took to expose that it was a staged event for publicity. So now I'm going to play you a video that it's made up of it's a collage of videos, has 4 parts. The first one is the video, the villager that shows the dike that they built, and then the other 3 are footages from social media that I collected to show you these staged publicity efforts by the CCP's propaganda. So let me play that. Okay, so here we go. So this is what the government said. This is the front lines dike they built. He gave the location of the village. He said, these don't do anything. He said, this is what the municipal government promoted. This is what they built. This is staged photo shoot. For publicity. This is a staged photo shoot of how they supposedly rescue a couple from floods. But take a look. They say the car does not have much flood. Okay, these are just social media posts. I'm going to skip that. It's kind of long. And here's another staged photo shoot. And the text said that, is there anything that's real in this society?
有画面了，这是。看这导演。
It's staged.
你这么整不对劲，你应该躺沙堆底下。
躺沙堆里扒呗。
对，这就是屯子，看完了，这就能洗澡。扛东山去，往东山扛。 啥都能造假呀。
The person just sighed and said, anything can be fake, or they can fake anything.
好啊，看那家是吧？就要这个画面，看那家捕捉的，你瞅着，一会儿一门漏的，你看家。
Everything here is staged for photo shoot.
对，再干一下子。那哥们儿回家要工去了，3等功。
And the person filming this said these soldiers are going to be awarded for a third, for an honorary medal. They should win a medal for doing this.
干什么？也，这导演导的不怎么太好。导
He
演。
said the person even said the director isn't doing a good job directing this show. So this is how the CCP propaganda. This is the PLA's involvement in the flood. Hold on, let me come back. I don't even know how to bring myself back. Oh, here we go. I think a normal person cannot comprehend how a government would deal with life and death situation with that kind of a staged effort. But okay, so that's the PLA's involvement in the rescue effort. Number 4, no donation through the official channels. Now, the Chinese Red Cross Society is a synonym for scam in China due to a number of corruption cases over the years. People recently found out that the organization, I don't know if it's the overall organization or just the local chapter, but they found that one Red Cross organization in China raised 42 million yuan in 2022, and its personnel cost was 33 million yuan, which is 77% of its total funding. And how many people worked at the organization? 51. And so people did the math, and they said that on average, each person took 650,000 yuan from the Red Cross in 2022. And that's about $100,000 per person. I don't think the average salary of American Red Cross is $100,000. That would be high as an average annual salary. But according to the numbers, that's how much the Chinese Red Cross, were paying people. So this time, when China's Red Cross asked people to donate money for the flood victims, people refused. People, what they did is they donated like 1 penny or 1 cent, just to embarrass the organization. And then the Red Cross calling the 1 cent or 1 penny donation malicious donations. And now people from Hong Kong who were very generous in the past for supporting disaster reliefs in mainland China remained quiet and inactive this time. And you wonder why. While the Chinese government and officials aren't doing anything, what we have seen is that Chinese people are getting organized to help each other. Almost all the rescue efforts were done by private organizations or semi-private organizations. And this can be a turning point in the regime's downfall, because part of the CCP's rule is based on the destruction of private associations among its citizens. So even, I'm not saying that there aren't private organizations allowed in China. There are, but they are subject to government approval and surveillance. And so people don't really have the freedom. I mean, their goal is trying to prevent people from getting organized on their own. So that's why we've seen the regime trying to set a foot in many organizations. For example, it requires large private companies and even foreign companies to have a party committee, right? So Chinese people don't have the freedom to form associations or networks outside the government's surveillance. However, the inaction by the government and by the officials has given people the chance to get organized. And one of the direct impact of the flood is that people will be organizing themselves, not only online, but also in physical groups. And the CCP cannot stop them this time. Before the flood, the CCP relied on big data and digital surveillance technology to monitor social activities and prevent people from gathering, because people relied so much on WeChat, right? To communicate, to get organized. So the government could effectively dismantle their association or their group communication. Now with the flood and with the breakdown of the communication systems, and with millions of people in central and northern China having lost their homes or will be losing their homes due to contamination, these people will be forced to move. They will forced to move and seek refuge from friends and families. This trend will make social gathering and social congregation impossible to stop, because you can't stop people from gathering. I mean, people are going to say, well, I have to go move to my cousins because I don't have a home unless you compensate my home. So there'll be a lot of moving people's mobility will be ongoing, and maybe people will be congregating in smaller groups without resorting to internet. And this will be a trend. There will be congregations in physical groups, and the CCP cannot stop them. And at the same time, if you think about it, from what I read, some people have lost everything. They lost their home, their personal belongings. Some lost their loved ones, and they're not afraid anymore. What do they have to lose, right? Hebei province opened, there's one example I want to show you. Hebei opened 7 flood retention zones to absorb flood waters, and Bazhou was one of them. However, the CCTV news reported on August 4th that some villages in Bazhou were underwater due to rainfall. This report also said that local firefighters responded to the situation immediately and dispatched 2 rescue teams to ensure that no one was left behind. This got the local villagers angry. So they went to the local government building to protest on the same day, holding up a banner that said, "Give my home back. It was destroyed by dam discharge or reservoir discharges, not rainfall." Eyewitnesses say that close to 1,000 people went. The villagers denounced the government's fake rescue efforts by sending people to pose for pictures. Again, the government sent people for 2 hours only to pose for publicity. And you know why? You may wonder why do the CCP do that? I think it has to do with I think because after many years of emphasizing on political loyalty, and also after decades of corruption, a lot of the Chinese officials have lost the ability to really work under stress. So in normal days, the job is so easy, and they have, their job responsibility is very limited, and they hire so many people, right? The ratio of government officials to citizens is what, 20-1? In ancient times, it's like thousands to 1. You have one official for every thousands of citizens. Now it's like 20-1. I even have seen numbers that says 10-1. So China has the world's largest body of officials, but they are not doing anything. So these people have lost their abilities to work, not even just under stress, to work. So when you have a situation like this that seriously require people's selfless devotion to their people, to take care of them, to handle all kinds of crises, right? These people don't have the ability, don't have the strength, and don't have the heart. They can't do it. But they probably have to do something to tell their superior that I did it. So what do? Well, they resort to these staged publicity efforts to fake it. So people say the Chinese government is another tofu drag project that the CCP has built. So the tofu zha gongcheng, the tofu drag projects, the tofu drag buildings that the CCP has built. So its government, its own government systems, or the governance infrastructure, whatever you call that, the system, is also a tofu drag project. It's not going to sustain any pressure. So that's why these officials chose to do these staged publicity stunt to fake it rather than really do their best to help their people. It's very sad. So these villagers went to the government building to protest, and they also expressed they're not happy with the money the government offered them. I think in the village, the government offered them 30 yuan per person per month for the next 3 months, so that they could get by, because these people have lost everything. I mean, even if they have their home there, it's contaminated. They can't use it. So they offer 30 yuan per month per person, but the person has to be living in the village before the flood came. So it's 900 yuan a person a month. That's really not a lot of money. And these villagers are not happy with the money they get. And it's only for 3 months. What happens after 3 months? And so they went to the village to protest the press coverage. They also went there to protest the very limited money compensation they got. And the reason why the CCP media kept saying that it's rainfall and not reservoir discharge is because if they admit it's reservoir discharge, the government is liable, right? Because it's the government's decision to discharge water, and so the citizens can hold you liable. So that's why they're denying it. They delete the previous media posts that acknowledge that it was the dam discharge. So now they're saying it's rainfall, it's natural disaster, so you can't hold the government accountable. So now I think the villagers so far has made a successful appeal, because I think the media, I think it's CCTV, removed that post that said that the disaster was rainfall. And also the local government promised to give them more money for compensation. Now you have to know that Hebei, both Hebei and Heilongjiang province are one of the poorest provinces in China. They don't have, the government's financial situations are terrible. So even though they could promise the residents that they're going to compensate them, I don't know if that's really going to happen. So we should keep an eye on the development there and see what happens. Now, perhaps I just described the local situation, right? How the government is dysfunctional and the people are getting organized. But the most important question is, how does it transpire from here? And what's next? Well, I certainly worry that famine and diseases will hit some parts of China, and more people will be homeless. But the most important question is, what does it mean to the regime? That's a question. I think it will certainly, these natural or unnatural disasters will certainly weaken CCP's, the regime's control on the Chinese society. But there are other indications, supernatural indications, that have sprouted across China that make Chinese people think. Because what matters now is, what do Chinese people think and what do they believe? Because if they all believe that this regime is finished, then it is finished. But if they believe that it can still exist and still pretty powerful, then that probably will be the case. So how people perceive what has happened and what's going to happen is very important. And so that's what I want to talk about, a series of unexplained and supernatural phenomena taking place in China in the past week, one after another. So we've seen typhoons, we've seen floods, we've seen earthquake, right? But there are more. Around the same time that the earthquake in Shandong happened, in Hebei, people saw snow at 6:30 o'clock in the morning. There are social media videos that show the snow. I just didn't have the time to download all these videos for you, but if you search them, you will see them. So that was on the 19th day of the June month on the lunar calendar. Now, the lunar calendar is 1.5 months behind the solar calendar. So it's August, but it's only June in the lunar calendar. So in traditional Chinese culture, snow in June, which is really snow in August, right, for us, signifies great grievances and serious injustice. There are just historic anecdotes and stories and even literary works that tell this story. So it's a strong belief held by Chinese traditionally. So in ancient times, if it snowed in August or in June, according to Chinese calendar, the emperor was to be under the imperial edict of sin. The emperor must lead his people to beg for the heavens' forgiveness, because it means that there's serious injustice and grievances on the land, in his land, that needs to be addressed. Chinese people all know this. So the snow in Hebei, right? The snow took place in no other place than Hebei, the center of the flood. It reminded people of the countless innocent lives lost during the flood. How could people not think about it, right? And it doesn't stop there. A series of strange phenomena has taken place across China in the past week, from a blood moon to fishes, I should say fishes, fish, to fish jumping out of water for no reason, to water pillars coming from the ground from nowhere. So I asked my editor to make a collage of video that's showing these random, weird, unnatural phenomena that has made the Chinese people wondering what's going to happen. So I'm going to play this video for you now. It's only 1 minute. Here we go. So let me start from the very beginning. I took out the audio so I can. So these, yeah. Where was this? This is in Yunnan. And then nobody knows what's the reason. And here you have waters coming from the ground for no reason. And then security guards came to ask people not to take pictures, but people wonder what's going on. And then here you have swallows, birds, like flying, like fleeing, like crazy at night in Shandong. And this is in Henan, not in Shandong. Same thing, birds going wild. And many people suspect these are, and then you have blood moon. And this is in Hubei. And there may be other signs in other parts of China that I have not included, but people fear that they are the signs of other major disasters coming, such as a major earthquake, or the fall of a dynasty, or the death of a ruler, because in traditional Chinese culture, when you have these unnatural signs that something significant is about to happen. There are also other things that have happened. 2 social media accounts based outside China and also Radio Free Asia, I think it's Radio Free Asia, revealed that a military helicopter crashed into a high voltage line due to heavy fog on the water in Hebei, killing 16 16 people. Some of them are military officers and some are officials. So I think it included the pilot, a TV reporter, the deputy director of the Bureau of Transportation, and the deputy secretary of the Emergency Response Bureau from the Baoding municipal. Baoding is the city, is the metropolitan area responsible for Zhuozhou, and also like maybe a dozen military officers. So all of this together, are these enough signs to tell people that the end of the regime is pending? I think different people will have different answers, but it certainly makes Chinese people think and wonder. So that ends my presentation, and I hope it's helpful. It's just a collection of my observations of the things that I've witnessed, or collected and read or heard or analyzed in the past couple of days. Some of the thoughts may be preliminary, but I think it's enough fruit for thought for now. All right, let me see if people have questions for me. That's a lot of talking on my part. All right, let me see. Well, let me first go through the super chats questions. There are a lot of super chats questions. From Frosty Flake, is there a Chinese version of Cry Me a River for CCP and Xi? I don't know. That's a good question. I'll ask and get back to you on that. Okay. All right. Let me see. But thank you for the support and the donation. Sir Humphrey, thanks, Lei, for putting together the live stream. Enjoying your insights. Looking forward to questions. Thank you, sir. All right. From Jeffrey O'Neill. Lei, do you see any indication that the level of discontent is rising to a level that's hard for the CCP to contain? I'm amazed at how much the Chinese people have been willing to bear. I think I agree with you. I think it has risen to a level that's impossible for some people to bear. And based on what I read, there's so many people saying on social media that they've lost everything. They can't live anymore. I mean, before it was the pandemic and then the disastrous economy, right? People just don't have money, but at least they have a home. They have families, right? They have loved ones, and they could still at least get by day to day. Now, all of a sudden, they lost their home. They lost their loved ones, and it just not just them, but people around them have all been affected. It's not just like he is singled out. It's like the whole community of people around him all of a sudden become homeless. These people are homeless now. And I mean, what else can these people do? And their government is not helping them, but creating all these troubles, right? Creating all these troubles to prevent people from, because the governments, they are creating so much trouble to prevent the private rescue teams, people who are volunteers trying, from out of provinces, from other parts of China, coming to Hubei to help these people. And the local government is not welcoming them for the reason that their involvement will disclose more atrocities that will look bad for the regime. So I think they're at a point that this cannot continue anymore. So that's an accurate observation. All right, let me go through the super chats. Thank you. Thank you for your support. Okay, I got one from Mara. I don't know how to pronounce this. Mara's. How do I pronounce that? Sorry. Lei for General Secretary. Okay. I don't know if I'll ever want that job as a General Secretary. I don't mind being a secretary, but not CCP's General Secretary. But thank you for the support. From 1 of 19, CCP continues to invest in its international strategy and ignores the domestic needs. How long can the CCP continue to avoid its domestic responsibilities? It will continue to avoid its domestic responsibilities because it has never taken, it does not see itself being responsible to its domestic, to its people. If it is responsible, then it wouldn't be CCP. For example, that news about how China donated 10 million yuan and 900 tons of food to Sudan on August 2nd, in the middle of this, for flood relief, in the middle of a major flooding crisis in China. I mean, what are they thinking? So China's treatment of China has never respected its own people. Let me see. Questions? Oh, here we have from Elizabeth Loveland. I appreciate your insights very much. Thank you, Elizabeth. All right. Well, I thank you for your. Oh, here's one more. Quail. Quail. Ow. Ow. Appreciate your insights from Australia. Thoughts go out to those in China affected by floods. Thank you. I think the insights. I think what I have described tonight really paint a picture of what China would be like if a war breaks out. I don't think the government would do anything um, to um, to help its people. Although a war situation may be slightly different from a natural disaster, but they do share a lot of similarities. So I think having gone through the flood, I don't know how many Chinese people will be supportive of a war initiative. Because it will bring the same level of disaster, or it requires the same level of disaster relief effort. And their government is not able to do that, is not able to deliver that. So, yeah. All right, I think I have, here's one more. Elizabeth Loveland, totally off topic, but what do you think is happening to Fu Xiaotian, her baby? You're referring to Minister Qinggang's mistress? I have no idea. I think she is probably still under investigation. They're not going to let her out or let her baby out until they feel that they have a good control of the situation involving everyone implicated in the scandal or in the scandal, right? So how far that web of people will be involved, I think it could be quite elaborate, right? So it's not just her baby and Qinggang, but it's really a web of people that they're investigating. And depending on what they find with each person and what they're going to do with each person, until all the dust has settled, I don't think we're going to see her. Don't we? We've seen, the guy who wrote Desmond Shen, the man who wrote the book Red Roulette, right? His wife has been detained for 5 years. His wife disappeared for 5 years, and she was released recently. She called him when he was about to publish the book, asked him not to publish the book, but he did, and I think that was great. And because of the book, and then the impact the book made, I think the regime released her. It's one is because the impact of the book, and the other reason is they probably have already finished investigating everyone that they need to investigate around her or involved in her case, and that took 5 years. Or a good part of 5 years. So if that's 5 years, and I think the case with Fu Xiaotian is much more complicated than Mr. Mr. Shen's ex-wife. So I don't think we're going to see her for a while, if she's ever going to be released. All right, Mark Hanmai, thank you for all the China content you provide. Off-topic question, and no need to answer if too personal, but what got you started in Leisrealtalk? Looking forward to more live streams. It was the pandemic. I started during the pandemic, and I saw how America is becoming more like the communist China that I left behind. And I'm very concerned. And also there's so much, and also the pandemic has shown that the world is there's a disconnect between the CCP's intention and also what the world is aware. And there's a huge disconnect. And I feel like I could bridge that gap by educating the public. That's what I did this Leisrealtalk. And the name of my channel was not given by me. And I came up with some strange names. And one of my friends said, I don't like any of your names. Just call it Leisrealtalk. So, and here we are. And okay, from T.S. Low, thank you for the donation. All right, wow, that's the end of the question. Okay, I'm just picking a question in random. How will she react to uprising in China? China is already underwater in her country. Armed forces have issues of their own, and pressure from outside forces is building up. I have an intuition that okay, the question isn't finished. Okay, I want to add something. Although I said that PLA is not deployed, but the armed police forces has been deployed to Hebei. I think they want to, and they have been shooting down drones, because a lot of the aerial images that we've seen about the flood was taken by the drones, and they have been shot down by the armed police forces. So they do want to control. They want to have a damage control about what people are going to see visual wise, because more and more, I think, tragedies or unpleasant visuals will be disclosed in front of the world, and the CCP is controlling that. So armed police has already been deployed. All right, let me see. And here's a great question from Nasset Ganay. Do you think Chinese abroad, mostly in the US, will be singled out more and be denied to many more jobs and places due to the CCP asking and forcing Chinese to spy and steal for them? That's a very good question, and I want to address that because I'm a Chinese American. I thought about what's best to protect Chinese Americans. I mean, for the most part, Chinese Americans wouldn't do things to harm America, right? I mean, the number of people who are involved in espionage for the CCP are very small number of them. So, but we may all share the damaging image, right? Because of a few bad apples. So what do? I think the only effective way for the United States government to protect us, to really help the Chinese Americans, is to really stand strong and prevent and really crack down on the spy networks in the United States and prevent the spies from coming in, because only by really defending the interest of all Americans can our reputation be protected. Because if you let the spies come in and they do damages, and then we're paying the prices, right? Because people don't know. I don't blame the people who have notions about Chinese, because they don't know who is who. They don't know what your views on the CCP are. So they don't like Chinese spies, and they don't know who is who. So the only way is the Biden administration must do something to really stamp out these spies and prevent them from coming in, and really protect America and really protect all Americans. And only by doing that, only when the United States government has successfully done that, then the Chinese Americans' reputation can be saved. Because then there's no other way. As long as you allow the spies to come in, what can you do, right? So, right. So that's a very good question, and I do want to address that. All right, Stephen Pugsley. Sorry if I don't pronounce that right. Lei, thank you for the hard work to uncover the real story. Thank you. Max Schroeder, flood destroyed a large wheat area in Hebei. Russia stopped the grain deal. India has banned rice exports, less wheat and rice. Do you view China's near-term food security? I have been saying that for months. A few months ago, I have already, I don't know, I think I've made a video on that, maybe last year. But I have been saying that China will see famine. Famine will hit China because the majority, if you look at the income distribution of China, a significant of Chinese population is poor and very poor. So if food prices rise, they're not able to afford food. And we've already seen that. We've already seen the very poor migrant workers complaining or saying that they're not making enough to eat the bare minimal amount of food. Didn't I share a video on that recently? I did. Right? He said he can't find any job that pays enough to eat like just the plain steamed buns, mantou. And what else can he ask for life? He just needs some basic, some slices of bread to feed himself with nothing else. And he's willing to work to earn his bread, and he can't find those jobs. That's already happening, or that was happening before the flood. And so I think famine will be a serious problem. Homelessness will be a serious problem, and that will cause social instability. And I don't know what that means for the wealthy people, and I think it doesn't look too good for them either. All right. All right, let's see. Pa-bis. Okay, thank you for this channel. It means a lot to hear you explain the genesis of the channel. I too see what you see here. We have to be vigilant. We must course correct. Agree. Well, thank you. From Young Carol, thank you. Thank you for the donation. All right. Somebody said, Poindexter, do you think she would be upset if I tried to correct her pronunciation of espionage? I know it's not important, but it's a word she says a lot. How should I pronounce that? Well, I can't hear you, so I don't mind at all if people correct me. I don't pronounce the E. Well, I'll have to look it up in the dictionary. So please correct me. I don't mind at all. All right, for Mario Nakula. Lei, do you think that all these disasters in China will force dictator Xi to postpone Taiwan invasion? That's a very good question. No, I don't think so. For a rational leader, that would seem to be the case. But for a leader that constantly is looking for ways to survive chaos, starting a war may be his way out to deal with poverty and social instability. But there has to be one assumption. He has to make sure that his troops, his military, is loyal to him. Right? So that's what he's working on. So if he feels that he have a good command of his military, he's very likely to use the war to deal with the other crisis, the economic crisis, the social instability problems. So I think these disasters will not postpone his Taiwan invasion, as long as he feels that he has a good command or good control of the PLA. All right. That seems to be it. Eric A. Is there anger among the Chinese people? Yes, there are. There are a lot of anger. All right. That's all for tonight. I talked a lot, and I hope this is helpful information. And I'll see you next time. Okay? Thank you very much. Good night or good day.